The Fort Erie market is not frozen, it's shifting. And if you don't understand where the leverage is right now, you could miss the opportunity completely. Inventory is up. In fact, the RBC Economic Report for May 6th is titled, More Sellers Spring into the Canadian Housing Market. On top of an increase in inventory across Canada, there is also further drops in transactions now. This is something we've been seeing in Fort Erie, but we're now hearing about it on a more national level. Sales are happening, prices are still under pressure, and that combination is exactly why Fort Erie market needs to be watched closely right now. Because while inventory is rising and prices are still adjusting, buyers are quietly gaining negotiating power in certain parts of the market. And later in this video, I'm going to show you exactly where the pressure is starting to show up, especially with sellers and in the new construction environment. Hi, I'm Barbara Scarlett. I'm a local real estate agent and broker here in Fort Erie and in Niagara. Every week, I look at the numbers and I share them with you because the story is not always found in the headlines, but it's found in the patterns in the marketplace. As of May 6th, Fort Erie had 448 active listings. In the past 7 days, we saw 35 new listings, 13 sales, 75 average days on market, and an average price of $642,300. Now the price is up significantly from our average benchmark price. And of course, when I logged into the dashboard, I could clearly see that some of the higher valued properties moved over the past 7 days. And that helped contribute to that swing in the benchmark price. This past week wasn't so much about the first time home buyer that we saw in sales, but rather that move up buyer. So across the Niagara region, there is now 2,655 active listings with 316 new listings and 104 sales over the past 7 days. So yes, buyers have choice, but sellers also need to understand that choice creates pressure. When buyers have more inventory to compare, they become more selective. They look at price, they look at condition, they look at the days on market. These are all important to buyers in this market. And right now, the average days on market in Fort Erie are sitting at 75 days. That's not the total days on market, but the average days on market for a current listing. One of these days, I'm going to do a video about the difference and share that with you. But for now, that tells us homes are selling, but not overnight. This connects directly to what I talked about last week, the gap between list price and actual value. Many sellers are still anchored in past pricing, but the market is responding to today's buyer. Now, stay with me here because this next part is where the opportunity side of the market starts to show up. When you really break down the numbers, there's reasons why homes are still moving while others are sitting for months on end with price reductions. And it's also why some buyers right now are negotiating far more aggressively than most people realize. I also want to talk about what's happening with builders and new construction inventory because some of the biggest shifts are happening quietly behind the scenes. When you look beneath this data, there is very specific reasons why buyers are still moving in this market while other sellers are just sitting for months on end. If you're trying to buy, sell, or move up in Fort Erie right now, this is the part of this video that you need to understand. Fort Erie's 12-month home price index shows that prices are down 5.7% year over year. Well, sales are actually upticking 4.6% year over year. So this tells us that people are still buying, but prices are under continued downward pressure. Now, this is where the strategy matters. For sellers, the risk is not just selling for less because most properties are selling for less. The bigger risk is waiting too long, missing the strongest early buyer activity, and then having to reduce later and sitting and having your product go stale. This is happening to sellers who are not correcting their pricing. That was the message in this month's Seller's Cautionary Tale. In a soft market, a serious early offer, it needs to be respected. For buyers, this market is creating opportunity, not because every listing is a deal, but because more inventory, longer days on market, the motivated sellers can create room for negotiation when they go on to the buyer end. And we also are watching new construction closely. Buyers are still carrying a lot of inventory that they're sitting on, and some are starting to negotiate more aggressively behind the scenes. That does not always show up online in their list pricing. So what does this mean locally? If you are selling in Fort Erie, pricing correctly matters more than ever right now. If you're a buyer, the opportunity may be in the negotiation. Make sure you're dealing with local agents that understand this. And if you're trying to move up, this is where planning becomes important. You may have to adjust on the sales side, but you may also be able to negotiate a fantastic deal on the purchase side. That balance is what many sellers are actually missing. The Fort Erie market is not frozen. It's active, but it is active with pressure on price, more selection for buyers, and a clear need for strategy. If you're thinking about buying, if you're thinking about selling, or making a move here in Fort Erie, send me a message. I can break down what is happening in your specific price range.